Did you know there's a whole menu of foods you can't legally eat in the US? From fish that can poison you in one bite to cheese so dangerous they're practically contraband, some dishes are banned for good reason, while others? Let's just say the laws are debatable. Imagine craving a delicacy only to find out it's outlawed. Whether it's protecting your health or saving endangered species, the stories behind these forbidden bites will leave you shocked and maybe even curious. Ready to uncover what's cooking, or rather what isn't? Let's dive into the world of illegal eats. First on our list is Cadbury chocolate, a staple of British confections, has found itself at the center of a surprising ban in the US, but it's not for health or safety reasons. Instead, it's all about trademarks and corporate rivalry. In 2015, a legal dispute erupted between Cadbury's parent company, Mondelez, and Hershey's, which owns the rights to produce Cadbury-branded chocolates in the US. Hershey's argued that imported Cadbury products infringed on its trademark and too closely resembled its own recipes and packaging. As a result, Cadbury chocolates from the UK were banned from the US shelves, much to the dismay of British expats and American fans who argue that Hershey's version simply isn't the same. The key difference? The original UK recipe uses more cocoa and less sugar, giving it a creamier, richer taste. This ban shows how legal and corporate interests can impact something as simple as a chocolate bar. For many, it's not just about taste, it's a connection to home or a fond memory of travel. While specialty stores and online sellers have found ways to import the original bars discreetly, the official ban remains, keeping authentic Cadbury chocolates out of reach for most American consumers. Some foods are banned because they pose serious health risks, often leaving people questioning whether the danger is worth the reward. Let's explore a few more risky delicacies. Imagine sitting down at a restaurant knowing that one wrong cut could be your last meal. That's the reality with fugu, or pufferfish, a delicacy in Japan. The fish contains toxin, a poison that's up to 1,200 times more lethal than cyanide. It's no joke, just a tiny amount can cause paralysis and even death. Because of this, only specially trained and certified chefs are allowed to prepare it. In the US, the FDA heavily restricts fugu, and only a handful of restaurants have the clearance to serve it. We've already discussed the deadly allure of fugu, but let's get into the drama that surrounds its preparation. In Japan, chefs undergo years of rigorous training before they're licensed to serve it. One slip of the knife can leave trace amounts of toxin, which has no known antidote. Despite this, over 30 people in Japan have died from fugu poisoning since the year 2000. Interestingly, there's a black market demand for under-regulated fugu, particularly among thrill seekers. Some chefs even claim the toxin provides a slight numbing sensation, which adds to its mystique. In the US, the ban makes it all the more alluring. And for those who want to taste without the risk, there's now a specially farmed version of pufferfish bred to be toxin-free, but it doesn't quite have the same edge. Next we have... Here's another potentially deadly treat. Ackee, the national fruit of Jamaica. When unripe, it contains hypoglycin A, a toxin that can cause severe vomiting, seizures, and even death, a condition aptly named Jamaican Vomiting Sickness. The US has strict regulations on importing ackee, allowing only canned or frozen versions that meet specific safety standards. Jamaicans often describe ackee as creamy and buttery, making it a staple in their national dish, ackee and saltfish. While it's safer now, the fruit still carries a sense of danger, and some Americans are curious enough to seek it out despite the risks. Absinthe, also known as the Green Fairy, was once the drink of choice for artists and writers like Van Gogh and Hemingway. But by the early 1900s, it was banned in several countries, including the US, because it was believed to cause hallucinations and madness. The culprit? A compound called thujon, found in wormwood, is one of absinthe's key ingredients. The story of absinthe is as colorful as the drink itself. Back in the early 1900s, the Green Fairy was the go-to drink for European artists and intellectuals, inspiring everything from surrealist paintings to moody poetry. But as absinthe gained popularity, so did its reputation as a dangerous hallucinogen. It was blamed for violent crimes and even madness, which led to its ban in the US and several other countries. Modern science has since debunked these myths. showing that the amount of thujone in absinthe was never high enough to cause hallucinations. In 2007, the US lifted the ban, but with strict limits on thujone levels. So while you won't be seeing green fairies, you can still enjoy its complex flavors and storied past. Some foods are banned not because they're harmful to humans, but because their production takes a toll on the planet or involves unethical practices. Shark fin soup has been a symbol of status and luxury in many Asian cultures for centuries, but the process of obtaining shark fins is as brutal as it gets. Fishermen catch sharks, slice off their fins, and then toss the animals back into the ocean, where they can no longer swim properly and often die. This practice, known as shark finning, has decimated shark populations worldwide. Because sharks play a critical role in maintaining marine ecosystems, many countries, including the US, have stepped in to ban the sale and trade of shark fins. Some states have even gone a step further, banning the possession of shark fins altogether. Despite the bans, there's still a black market for them, which shows just how deeply ingrained this dish is in some cultures. Some restaurants have found creative ways to offer marked shark fin soup using gelatin or other substitutes. While it doesn't carry the same prestige, it's a step towards protecting our oceans. Caviar has long been synonymous with luxury, but its production comes at a high environmental cost. The beluga sturgeon, a prehistoric fish, has been fished to near extinction for its coveted eggs. In 2005, the US banned the import of beluga caviar to protect this critically endangered species. Interestingly, some caviar enthusiasts are now turning to sustainable alternatives, like farm caviar or even plant-based versions. While purists might scoff, these options allow people to enjoy the experience without contributing to the species' decline. This French delicacy, made from the liver of a duck or goose that's been force-fed, has sparked intense ethical debates. Animal rights activists argue that the practice of gavage, feeding the birds large amounts of grain through a tube, is inhumane. Some states like California have banned foie gras production and sale, while others allow it, citing tradition and culinary freedom. For chefs and foodies, foie gras represents a rich, buttery flavor that's hard to replicate. Some farms have tried to produce ethical foie gras by allowing ducks to eat freely, but the debate over its morality continues. In some cases, foods are banned not because they're inherently dangerous or unethical, but because they don't comply with certain regulations. These bans often come with a mix of confusion and frustration. Raw milk is one of the most polarizing banned foods in the US. Proponents claim it's packed with beneficial bacteria and nutrients that pasteurization destroys. They argue that it's a more natural product, free from industrial processing. Opponents, however, warn of the risks. Raw milk can harbor harmful pathogens, like Listeria and Salmonella, which can cause serious illness, especially in vulnerable populations. Federal law prohibits the interstate sale of raw milk, but some states allow its sale within their borders. This has led to a thriving underground market, with raw milk enthusiasts traveling across state lines to get their fix. It's a perfect example of the tension between personal freedom and public health. Kinder Surprise eggs, a beloved childhood treat in many countries, but a no-go in the US. Why? It all comes down to a 1938 law that prohibits non-edible objects from being embedded in food. The tiny toys inside Kinder eggs are considered a choking hazard, leading to their ban. However, Kinder found a clever workaround with Kinder Joy, which separates the toy from the chocolate. While it satisfies legal requirements, fans argue that it doesn't capture the same excitement as cracking open a Kinder Surprise. For many, it's less about the chocolate and more about the nostalgia of finding that hidden toy. If you've ever visited Scotland, you've probably heard of haggis, a savory pudding made from sheep's heart, liver, and lungs. While it's a staple of Scottish cuisine, it's banned in the US because the FDA prohibits the sale of sheep lungs for human consumption. Scottish expats and food enthusiasts have long campaigned for the ban to be lifted, arguing that haggis is no more dangerous than other traditional foods. Until then, American fans have to settle for lung-free versions, which, according to purists, just aren't the same. Let's face it, when something is banned, it only makes people want it more. Whether it's the allure of danger or just the thrill of defying the rules, food bans have sparked some fascinating controversies. And where there's a ban, there's often a loophole. Let's explore the foods that found their way back onto the table and the creative ways people work around restrictions. Absinthe's journey from being demonized to decriminalized is a wild ride. Once blamed for everything from hallucinations to violent crimes, the green fairy was banned in the US and much of Europe by the early 1900s. But here's the twist. The ban was based more on hysteria than hard facts. Decades later, scientists discovered that the levels of thujone, the supposedly hallucinogenic compound in absinthe, were too low to cause any real harm. Fast forward to 2007 and the US decided to lift the ban, sort of. Absinthe could be sold, but only if it contained less than 10 parts per million of thujone. For absinthe lovers, it was a bittersweet victory. Sure, you could legally sip on the green fairy again, but purists argue that modern absinthe doesn't have the same kick as the pre-ban versions. Still, the drink's mystique lives on, and fans celebrate its resurrection with pride. Foie gras has been at the center of one of the most heated food debates. California made headlines in 2012 when it banned the production and sale of foie gras, citing animal cruelty concerns. Chefs and foodies were outraged, arguing that the ban was an attack on culinary tradition. For a while, foie gras disappeared from California menus, but then came the loopholes. Some restaurants began serving foie gras for free as a gift to diners who ordered expensive meals, skirting the ban on sales. Others found legal ways to source it from out-of-state suppliers. Eventually, in 2015, a federal judge overturned the ban, declaring it unconstitutional. But the victory was short-lived. Legal battles continued, with the ban being reinstated and then lifted again in various forms. It's a culinary tug-of-war that shows no sign of stopping. Now, what happens when people can't wait for a ban to be lifted? Enter the underground food markets. Raw milk, for example, is a hot commodity in states where it's illegal. Enthusiasts often turn to secret Facebook groups or word-of-mouth networks to find farmers willing to sell them the unpasteurized product. It's like a Prohibition-era speakeasy, but for dairy lovers. Similarly, shark fins, despite their environmental impact, still find their way into some restaurants through discreet channels. And let's not forget about Kinder Surprise eggs. While technically banned in the US, people smuggle them in and from abroad, sometimes even hiding them in luggage as if they're carrying contraband. Customs officials have reportedly seized thousands of these chocolate eggs, much to the dismay of nostalgic travelers. What then is the global perspective? Food laws vary wildly around the world, and what's perfectly legal in one country might be strictly off limits in another. Take chlorinated chicken, for example. In the US, it's a common practice to wash chicken in chlorine solution to kill bacteria. Americans don't think twice about it, but across the Atlantic, Europe has banned it outright. Why? It's not just about health, though Europeans' regulators argue that chlorination may cover up unsanitary farming practices. It's also about cultural values. Europeans prioritize strict farm-to-table practices while the US focuses on efficiency and production of sale. Then there's ractopamine, a growth-promoting drug used in US pork and beef production. It's banned in over 160 countries, including China and Russia, due to the concerns over animal welfare and potential health risks. Yet in the US, it's considered safe, reflecting a regulatory system that leans heavily on science-based risk assessments. On the flip side, some foods considered delicacies elsewhere face scrutiny in the US. Queso marzu, a Sardinian cheese crawling with live maggots, is celebrated in Italy but illegal stateside due to health concerns. And let's not forget about haggis, Scotland's beloved dish of sheep's lung, which has been banned in the US since the 1970s. These differences highlight how deeply food laws are tied to cultural identity and societal values. Where the country sees tradition and flavor, another might see risk and regulation. It's a fascinating reminder that food isn't just sustenance. It's a reflection of who we are and what we prioritize. As you've seen, the world of banned foods is as complex as it is intriguing. From the dangers of fugu to the ethical dilemmas of foie gras, these bans reveal much about our priorities, fears, and cultural values. But they also spark curiosity and creativity, proving that when it comes to food, boundaries are often meant to be pushed, or at least debated. So, what do you think? Are these bans justified, or do they go too far? Have you ever tried a forbidden food, or do you know of any others that should have made the list? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed exploring this fascinating topic, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the world's most curious food stories. See you next time!